Hello everyone. So let's finally introduce our topic. Today we are introducing ecology, and this is our very first lesson. Yeah. As far as the syllabus book is concerned, get where you read. We start the population ecology first, then succession and ecological restoration, energy flow in the ecosystem, concept of carbon footprint, invasive species, and food security. So simply pause the video and get where to read. So for today, this being lesson one, we are going to first introduce the topic. We talk about the common terms used in the topic, what the topic means. We talk about the ecosystem and the different factors that influence it in one way or the other, and that will be enough. Plus, we are going to have our own order of covering this content, but we shall make sure we hit what the syllabus really wants us to know. But for today, we are going to talk about the basic things, and then we shall see what we can have next in the future. Okay, now, straight away, let me first have the lesson targets and see whether I can give anyone a chance to begin the lesson with me. So, we are going to have the lesson targets. So, for the lesson targets, the very first one is the meaning of ecology, which is supposed to be resolved by one of us and me. That one we shall resolve it together with whoever is ready, then the rest are mine. The meaning of ecology. Then after that, we shall talk about resolving common terms used. Of course, this being a competence-based curriculum, we shall also talk about the importance of studying ecology. So we shall only resolve common terms, of course, not all terms. Yeah, only those terms we are going to come across. So common terms used in ecology. Then after resolving the common terms, there is a term we are going to concentrate on in one way or the other. That is the ecosystem. And we shall talk about the factors affecting distribution because that's very important. Very important. Factors affecting distribution of organisms in an ecosystem. This is all in introduction. Someone may be like, now, what do you mean by an ecosystem? We shall find it as we resolve the common terms. So after talking about those factors, I think I'll give you my simple work on habitats. My simple work on habitats. We shall introduce ecosystems, and then next time we meet, I'll talk about energy flow maybe, but I'll introduce ecosystems after us knowing what it is, the factors that affect. Um, so we shall introduce. ecosystems. Yeah. And then of course I will leave you with some research and tasks. And that will be enough for today. It will be enough for today. So in whatever we are planning for today night, our next stop should be energy flow. Yeah, because according to what I've just sent you in the group, realize energy flow is a serious subtopic. So we should give it time. So next stop, energy flow in an ecosystem. That's why I've said the ecosystem, we are going to just introduce it. We shall not say much. Then energy flow, that's what we shall begin from. Yeah, that will be the end. That will be the end, like that. Yeah. Okay. Now, to begin with, it's the meaning of ecology. And I told you that I always try my level best and give one of you a chance to talk. And then we begin the lesson together. So I don't know, according to the information you've been getting from the internet, what do you know about ecology? Maybe you can even tell us, why is it called so? And what is that term they mean when when they say the study of ecology? Things like that. What is that ecology? Yes, Emma.
Thank you, Doctor. Good evening to everyone. Well, ecology refers to the branch of biology that deals with the study of relationships of organisms to one another and their physical surrounding, or you can call it the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Uh, yes, Fahad. Yes, Fahad. Then after Fahad, we shall have Blessed Daughter and we shall stop at that.
For ecology,
I don't know why it's quiet. People, why do you mute yourselves when the answer disappeared?
ecology, good evening, members. So ecology is a branch of biology which deals with the study of relationship between living and non-living environment. Ecology comes from two words, eco and logy. Eco means natural environment and logy means study. So it specifically we study about organism in their natural environment.
That has been very good. Very good. Hope Blessed Daughter is going to make it better. Is that all?
Yes.
Blessed Daughter has disappeared. Yes, Savior. Okay, Blessed Daughter. Okay, I think those are enough submissions. I've not had the last speaker well. So, just like Fad said, that logi means study, and eco is strictly the natural environment. So we are studying about the natural environment, but how? That's what I want to tell you today. So I'm going to begin with the real life situation so that maybe you can relate what we are going to be concentrating on in this topic. Okay. Introduction. So, ecology. So you all know that just like biology, they say bio means life and logy is study. So it's really the study of life. So this is study, and then this one means natural home. Yeah, you can check the internet. This one means natural what? Natural home. What our friend called the natural environment. So basically, we are going to be studying about natural homes of different organisms, not only man. So ecology is looking at all organisms, or of generally living things. So it's the natural home of living things. So you may ask yourself, are we going to study where they stay and that's all? Maybe like, oh, if at all we are studying natural home, that means all we need to know, where do monkeys stay, where does man stay, where do phytoplankton stay, where do the zooplankton stay, like that. No, that's not the thing. So when they ask you for the fish's echo, you tell them water, because it's like they're asking you, what is the natural home of fish? When they ask the echo of a bird, you be like air and trees, because they fly in air and rest on trees. Even land, sometimes, some birds. When they ask you for man's echo, that is land, water, and air. As man can live anywhere, can find ways of surviving. So as far as ecology is concerned, we are just studying life of that organism and where it stays, how that organism survives, how it tries to get food, and how it survives from the predators. Now, using predators is very wrong because we haven't resolved the terms in this topic. But it's like you trying to live in your area, wherever you live. Maybe you live in Entebbe or in Kampala. So we study your natural home, Kampala. And how do we study and how do we relate everything? We find out how do you survive. Surviving, maybe I can mean how do you look for food? What do you feed on? And how do you protect yourself from thieves and from other bad things? Something like that. So we are going to be looking at all living things, how they live in their ecos, the natural homes, and how they interact with the environment. In primary, we used to say that the environment are things that are surrounding man, and a lot of things surround man. There are a lot of new terms you're going to find in this topic, but please just make them your friends. Don't overthink, everything will be very okay. So, we have said that in this ecology, we are going to be studying the natural home of living things. Yeah. So, we're going to be studying the living things. We shall study their homes and how they interact with the environment. And how they interact with the environment. So I want to first tell you people, you just look where you are. Especially some of you people, you have poultry at home, you have livestock and some other things. And where you are exactly, you're surrounded by a lot of things. I'm talking to those people who have livestock at home. When we are studying your environment and how you're interacting with whatever is surrounding you, even that livestock is part. And livestock, just like the word goes, livestock, those are living things. So, as far as the environment is concerned, you're going to learn in this topic that the environment has the living components. Let me first secure this document. So as far as the environment is concerned, you're going to learn that in A level, environment is not just environment, just the way we used to talk about it in the previous levels of education. So this is ecology 1. Okay, so environment can be living and environment can be non-living. Yeah. So the environment has what we call the living component or the living components, and then the same environment has what we call the non-living component. Or the non-living. Okay, now I want you people to be good students of English. You see, this ecology has a lot of terms that relate to the English language. You understand? Now, if I told you have good English, we said that biology, bio alone means life. You understand? So how can we call that something that has life? We say that it is what? You tell me in the chat. If bio alone means life, and I want to say something has life, then it is what? You people know English? Biotic. Biotic. Exactly. Biotic. Biotic. Someone is saying biosphere. How? Biotic. Biotic. That's the word I wanted. That's the word I wanted. Yeah. Just like the way they can tell you that this person is good at sarcasm, so that person is always sarcastic. There are so many English words, but that's what relates to bio, maybe. Yeah. Okay, biotic. So just have it in mind that bio means life. When we say bio, we mean life. So when we talk of the living components, they have another word. Biotic components. And I've just told you, just like you there, if at all at home you have poultry and any form of livestock, as we are studying your environment, the livestock is part of it as your surrounding. And that is a living component because those things have life. Then there are some of you who live around rivers, around lakes, around sources of water, around trees, around air. All of us have air as our surrounding. Air is our immediate surrounding. So I'm asking, is the water and air, and maybe, of course, we are always moving on land. And of course, land has soil. So soil is a better word to be used in biology and not land. Yeah, land has a lot of meanings, but it is usually soil. I don't know whether you people have ever heard of what they call edaphic factors. So you tell me, the air, the soil, the water, are they living components or they are non-living? I want you to reason well. Don't panic. That thing is very confusing. I've explained to you what living components means, and I'm now asking, do you think air or water, are they living components or they are non-living components? Who can unmute and give us with a reason and tell us with the reason? Because I think you can see the chat. Someone is saying living. I'm seeing someone saying non-living. Those who are saying non-living, what is the reason? Why do you say air is non-living? Or you just crammed it, or you just learned it by heart? Yes, Josh.
For me, I think
Yes? And the reason is very simple. Yes, Judith. I want a reason. The reason is very simple.
Okay, for me, I think it's living because they can be replaced naturally.
So for you, you're supporting living. Okay, that's good. and I've heard your reason. Yes, blessed daughter. But blessed daughter, your mic has issues. We don't hear at all. I don't know if that's only at my end, but I think people see the confusion. And these are small things that really matter. But those two things are actually non-living. They are non-living because it lacks a cellular structure. They don't bear. That's the reason I wanted. So you people, before you judge anything, first find out, do you know the characteristics of living things? You'd be like, I know them. What are they? Living things grow, living things feed, living things respire, they reproduce. So you just need to ask yourself, if at all they ask me what air is, you ask yourself, does air respire? Does air grow? Does air feed? Does air reproduce? Does air locomote? Yes, wind is moving air, so you can say, okay, it moves, but does it respire? Because those are characteristics of it. That means every living thing must be doing all of them. So realize that air doesn't do some of those things. Because if I ask you, how will air reproduce? It won't. So they are non-living components. Same to water. But what really usually confuses people is that these things are not living, but they are essential for life. You get that the air is essential for life. That's why it's a habitat or a comfortable place for some organisms like birds. Water is non-living, but it is essential for life to some aquatic organisms like fish. So I hope you get the difference. So, you know how to handle opposites in English. Things like sexual, the opposite is asexual. Symmetrical, the opposite is asymmetrical. You know, such kinds of opposites. So even biotic, you may not say non-abiotic or anabiotic, but we simply say abiotic. So non-living, they're also called abiotic components. Yeah. Yeah, that is it. So you need to also know that in the same sense, they can always use these ones as the biological components, then they can use the non-living as the physical and chemical component. But the basic things, non-living components, which are the same as abiotic, and then the abiotic. The living components, which are biotic, then the abiotic ones. So here are the quick examples, as we've just said. We have air, water, light temperature, soil. We have the soil, we have the water, and etc. We are going to see more examples in our reference notes. Our reference notes are also ready, so don't worry. Then among the living components, we can talk about humans, because they do whatever living things do. Uh-huh. Then we also have bacteria and etc. I told you this is the introduction. If at all anything remains unresolved in this lesson, the topic will disturb you, and it is very boring, but it is interactive because you can have primary knowledge without even you knowing that you actually have it. Just like you people didn't know that for you to guess whether the component is living or non-living, you just consider the characteristics of living things. So you just note that down. I'm not writing it. That what we are basing on to consider these ones as living and these ones as non-living are the characteristics of what? Of living things. Hope you note. Okay. Now, that is ecology for you. We are studying the nature of living things and how they interact with the environment, where the environment may have living components and non-living components. Now, I want to give you a case scenario first so that I close the meaning of ecology. Yeah. Now, let's assume all of you here know legs. Yes, all of you here know legs. Even if I don't use that, let me use an example like I think assume a family So let's assume that we are having a family that feeds their goats on grass. Are you seeing that? So my question is, my two questions are, what if I want you to tell me, I want you to answer, eh? I want to show you what ecology means. What if all the goats die? What happens? Who can unmute and tell me? What if all goats die? A family that feeds their goats on grass and only depends on goat's meat. Because some of you have not yet gotten this thing. So assume you're having a family somewhere very far. They have their goats and they are feeding these goats on grass. And that family only and only depends on goat's meat. We are assuming, because it's an assumption, you can see. What does that mean? Without grass, these goats will not eat. And without the goats, the family will not eat. You get? So what happens if all goats die? And then what happens if all the grass still dies? Yeah. So I want you to answer. So where I'm asking, when the goats die, talk about the family, talk about the grass. When I say when all the grass dies, talk about the family, talk about the goats, like that. Yes, Josh.
For me, I think when the goats die, the population of the grass will increase, whereas the population of the family will decrease because the family are secondary consumers who depend on the goats, and the goats get their energy from the primary producers, which will be grass. And when grass dies, the population of both the goats and the family will reduce because now there is no way the family will get energy from the primary producers, which is grass, without the goats in between that chain. That's what I think personally.
Yeah. I think he has spoken some good biology. Yeah. So when these goats die, that means the grass will just do what? Grow. Yeah. The grass grows because the goats that have been feeding on it have actually died. And then the family, not this word only. Someone had said the family will now resort to eating the grass. We assume that the goats is now the only source of food to that family. Yeah, that means the family will have no option. You get? Okay. Now, since the goats have died, of course, we talked of the family members reducing in number. They reduce in number slowly, and the father will die last for reasons you all know. So, when the grass dies, that means the goats will not have anything to feed on. So we expect for them to be slowly getting sickly, slowly dying, after, of course, slowly starving until starving reaches its maximum, like that. And when these goats die, that means the family will also not have food. That means eventually it will also go down. So I think you're realizing we're having our environment that has three things: grass, a goat, and a family. And realize the moment one tries to play around, we others are really affected in one way or the other. So the study of those interactions is what they call ecology. Yeah, those interactions you see we have just talked about. That when grass dies, this is what happens. When goats die, this is what happens. Things like that. Maybe when more grass grows, maybe when these goats reproduce. Now I would ask, what would happen if these goats multiply in number? That means they are going to overeat the grass and it will be also reducing in its population. Let me hope you are aware that even grass has population. Because in this topic we have what we call population ecology. We talk about population of all living things, whether trees. So don't think population is for only man. Here, even if we say anything that you've been used to as relating to man, you can even relate it to bacteria, to anything. So, the study of those interactions is ecology. Yeah. So the study of those interactions. Yeah, I think that is enough. That is enough. Now we are going to go to our reference notes. Yeah, that's enough for the ecology. We have said a lot and a lot. So hope you people are noting down slowly. There are a lot of things I'm saying, but not writing. Hope you're taking note. So let's go and now start reading. Then okay. So don't mind the topic number. Yeah. It is topic 9. Okay. Now, what are they saying? They're saying that ecology is the scientific study. So you now know what ecology is. So all these things of importance of studying, we understand. This is the scientific study of, we're taking screenshots slowly like that. This is the scientific study of relationships of living organisms with each other. Now, when they say with each other, remember they are living organisms. So relating with each other, that is relating with the biotic components. Then they are saying, and their physical or non-living surroundings. You know, if you people are trying to understand that we are studying how living organisms are relating with each other because they are living. So it's like studying how they relate with the biotic environment. Then and their physical or non-living surroundings. You get? Yeah. So the physical non-living, I won't hear about that already. The biological surrounding is the one with life. The physical chemical is the other one that is non-living. Because what has chemicals, air has chemicals, so it has chemicals. And they are physical. Hope you get. Importance of studying ecology. Provides information about species interaction and environment in order to design biological control. Biological control is also a topic that we shall look at, but at least I'm sure you understand when they say it provides information about interaction of species in an environment. Biological control is controlling life using life. What do I mean? You can use a cat to control the population of rats. Are you understanding? Hope you're noting. When I say biological control, you're using life to control life. You're using a cat to control the population of rats at home. That's what they call biological control. Then chemical control, you now use chemicals to control the population of those rats at home, something like that. To monitor the environment in order to minimize its damage. Yeah, just like we've just said, when these goats increase in number, they are going to overfeed on the grass and the grass will be depleted because of overgrazing and so on. So after you having knowledge on ecology and you understand that if goats increase in number, that will happen, you now control or regulate the population of these goats so that the grass is given some time to grow back. Something like that. To predict and prepare for future environmental changes. You get? Because you know what is going to happen in the future because of the interaction. So you predict and prepare. To define factors responsible for environmental change. Just like we said, in case a family dies, that means something wrong is with the goats. And if something wrong is with the goats, that means there is something wrong with the grass. So you know what is causing what. To design conservation strategies. Still rotates about the same thing. If at all one living organism is overusing any living component or the physical component, you can really tell and find ways of how conservation can be done. Something like that. To relate structures of living things to their functions. We shall see that when we reach still under the ecosystem, that is in energy flow. We shall see that living things respire, and when respiration occurs, we release energy, and then that energy must flow through an ecosystem. You understand? So you like it or not, we shall have to relate structures of living things to their functions. Without the mitochondria, you can't have respiration. Without respiration, you can't have energy. And without energy, you can't start the energy flow through what? An ecosystem. To account for evolutionary adaptations of living organisms, we shall see this, that if antelopes have been being attacked by lions for some good time, as time goes by and by, they learn how to adapt to such attacks and see how maybe they can survive. The thing is, in the long run, we shall study evolution. When something is disturbing man, time reaches and you try to adapt to the new environment or to that long-lasting situation. That's why when someone over tries, I'm not going to use that. Many of you will feel bad, but it's all about a constraint coming in, any force, any bad aura, anything, and then you're supposed to adapt. So when you adapt, even the species that you will give birth to, you may pass on those traits of adaptation. So it's not something much. But as you study ecology, you can even go to the internet and get more importances and then try to find out what each importance means. But I've tried to give you hints on each of them. But they are obvious for you, just provided you relate this topic of ecology to the normal stuff, to the normal stories, normal interactions, things will be coming out. As simple as that. If the chicks have been attacked by eagles for some good time, there is a way they learn to adapt slowly. That's why as time goes by, the attacks reduce because these chicks have tried to learn new ways, but it is because of evolution. It's all about one chick adapting, and then when it grows, it gives birth to others. So in one way or the other, those adaptation traits are passed on. I told you that in inheritance. So it's not that hard. So we are going to look at the common terms. That is the next thing. So when these terms are resolved successfully, trust me, the topic will not disturb you because you now know the basics. Okay. So we are going to begin with the ecosystem. So the ecosystem is a lot. You can have a forest with a lot of things. That's what they call the ecosystem. Remember, eco alone is what? The natural home. So when we say ecosystem, we are simply meaning a system of natural homes where these where these organisms are inhabited. By inhabited, I mean habitat. And you all know from primary what they call the habitat is where any living organism stays. Something like that. So, I want us to begin with these examples. I think they are giving us a forest, a pond lake, salt marsh, seashore, and so on and so forth. But there are certain things you need to know. In your curriculum, you're not supposed to learn how to define. So we may not stress ourselves with how things are correctly defined, but rather understand the meaning until when the form of assessment is finally confirmed. Because this form of assessment can change. This year you can have a different form of assessment from next year, like that. So until the curriculum stabilizes. But as of now, don't stress yourself with cramming definitions, but have the meaning. Yeah. So you can see here they are saying this is a community of organisms. We are also going to see what community means. Yeah, we shall see what community means. I think they are the next definitions there. There are things that really confuse people. An ecosystem is different from a community, and a community is different from a population. But we shall find ways of understanding this very well. Very well. Okay. There are things, let me put for you a note here. Concerning definitions, you see most of these summaries notes we use, they're just there to make us understand the topic in most of the cases. But as far as understanding definitions is concerned, you're supposed to use textbooks for definitions. So for definitions, always refer to textbooks. Definitions are not many in biology. It's mostly the content part. But for definitions, always visit textbooks. So for definitions, always refer to textbooks, if only and only confused. But if at all the definition that has been provided to you is making sense, don't even waste your time. Why I tell you to always refer to textbooks, all textbooks do this thing. Before they define the ecosystem, they first tell you about it. Then they define. So by the time they define it, you're good to go, if I may say. Now, I want members to tell me the chat. I just want you to use 15 seconds only, and you now have 13 seconds. Tell me the textbook, your favorite textbook in biology. Use just a second, tell me. I told you all names of textbooks in our lesson told me nucleic acids. So you tell me in the chat, which one is your textbook of biology? The one you always refer to when things are not going on well. Just in case you're confused, which one is your favorite textbook in the subject? Uh-huh. You people are fun. You people are fun. Anyway, you look here, you look here. There are these three terms that usually confuse people in this topic. That is population. I'm not going to comment about some people's textbooks. um, there is population, there is community, there is ecosystem. So I want you to get things now. Ecosystem. Okay. All of you at least have ever visited a school. So you all know which kinds of trees are usually in schools. I want to use trees. I want to use trees. Which kinds of trees are common in schools? You just tell me any tree. Can I use mango trees? Okay, the school has very many things, and I'm going to talk about many. Okay, now the school has grass. Of course, the school has birds. Then the school is also having the other things we talked about. The school has air. The school has water. The school has soil. Isn't it? Now, you need to know that mango trees, of course, they have life, so they are biotic. Grass has life, so grass is biotic. Birds have life, so birds are biotic. Insects have life, so insects are biotic. Then air, what, they don't have life, so they are abiotic. Isn't it? Now, I want to teach you the other three things I've talked about. Where is the population now? Where is the community? Where is the ecosystem? Hmm? You learn this from me. You learn this from me. The number of mango trees alone. The number of mango trees, what? Alone, as in alone. That's why they call it population. That's why we have what they call population census. When they say population when they come home, they don't count the hens you have, they don't count the goats you have, they don't count the cats, the caps, the plates, the what. They only consider the people who are living there. Population census for only people. You understand? Now, for population, let it be and only one species. So when we read the definition, promise me that you will understand. So they will add on more technical words like in the same time, things like that. Same species living in the same habitat at the same time. So you're the same species because they found you at home, you're in the same habitat they found inside the house, and it was at the same time. You people were there and happily staying there. That is a population. But now, when we talk of a community simply comprises of two or more populations. I don't know if you people are getting. So when we talk of a community, so a community means two or more populations. I want you to follow very well two or more what? Two or more populations. Simple as that. Two or more populations. What I mean, a combination of mango and grass, that's what? A community. A combination of all these three, of all those four, from mango trees to insects, that can also be what? A community. Yes. Mango trees, those three, it can be a community. You get? Again, even if it is grass, birds and insects, it is still a community. Because grass alone population, birds alone population, insects alone population, mango trees alone population. So combination in any of the two or any of the three or all the four, it's what they call a community. You get? So someone may ask, now what of the other abiotic factors? The moment abiotic factors, the moment you have a community, I want you now to listen. The moment you have a community plus then the other factors, that is the physical environment, or what we call the abiotic environment. Now what you come up with is what they call the ecosystem. Or people now distinguish the theory and how they build onto each other. That's something that usually disturbs people. For you may think it is obvious, but time will come and it is confusing you. So have it in mind. When you hear of the word population, just recall one thing: population census. That is man. So it's supposed to be one species, same habitat at the same time. And this one for population is for only living things. For only living things. So you people, if populations are for only living things, just like population census, and a community is also two or more populations, that means it is two or more living things, two or more groups of living things. So even a community, it's living things purely. But the moment the non-living components come in, the physical components, the moment they come in and are part of the environment, now it becomes the ecosystem. So all your schools are ecosystems. But then if your school is having grass, the number of grass species only in the school, the number of a certain grass species, it's only that, its population. But the moment you start combining grass with maybe mango trees, now those are two populations. Now that is a community. Now the moment you add on and say that the mango trees and the grass are on our land, are on our soil, you know what that means? Eh, eh, someone who is on the call is someone is you people. I told you. Sorry. You people are supposed to call me now. It's only Daisy who has called me. I told you the moment my screen disappears, then you cannot see it. I cannot see the chat. That's one thing you people don't understand. The PC is very far. Right now I'm using a digital screen. You people were supposed to call me. Thank you, Daisy. So what did you see last? Now I've forgotten. I don't know. What did you see last? You people, if I'm not sharing my screen, I cannot even see that there are people who are raising up their hands. Oh my God. Okay. Who can raise up their hand and tell me that, doctor, this is where we stopped? Because I cannot recall. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Daisy. You're supposed to give me a WhatsApp call in case of any technical issue. Now, where are we? Yeah. Yes, Fad.
You had stopped at the number of mango tree alone. You told us that it's population. Then the rest you have been explaining minus screen.
Yes, so I've been wasting time.
No.
Yeah. I want 10 representatives in the chat. What should I repeat? Because this is biology. At least you people knew that I had written mango trees, grass, birds, insects, and water and what so on. And I've been speaking things that are obvious. I'm not going to repeat. Now, what should I repeat? What is on the screen and is not clear? What haven't you heard? Because whatever I've been speaking, you saw me at least write it. You people, I don't think anything was not okay. We continue. I don't think anything there was serious. Hey people, that is it. So populations, just like man, it's supposed to be for only living things. And since a community is two or more populations, then that means even a community is for living things. But the moment the non-living part comes in, the abiotic part, the physical part, that means it's now the ecosystem. So the whole school, all your schools are ecosystems. The number of birds in your school alone, that is population. The moment you mix birds with trees, that's community. And the moment the air or the soil or whatever comes in, it now becomes an ecosystem. As simple as that. So I think we can now go back to our terms. We continue resolving. Yeah, but sorry for that. So what are they saying? They are saying that an ecosystem is a community of organisms and their physical environment. Yeah, I was forced to do that because I saw a term community and I felt disturbed. Yeah, I felt disturbed. Okay. I think you now understand that definition, community of organisms and their physical environment interacting as an ecological unit. Oh, we can say an ecosystem is a definable area, an area you can define, containing a relatively sustained community. You know what community means. By self-sustained, that means the trees in your school, the grass in your school is growing very well. It doesn't even need daily care, but it is growing, so it is self-sustained. Yeah, like in a forest, no one is always there to take care of a forest, but forests can stay for years and years, millions of years, so they are self-sustained. Like they can take care of themselves. Okay. And they are interacting with their non-living surroundings. Hope you know that. I think it's now okay. So they are saying the ecosystem has major components, and those major components are only two. The living component, which is the biotic component, and the other component that is abiotic, or the non-living or the physical component. So I'll come back. We talk about the abiotic. Let's begin with the biotic. So the biotic is having a lot of terminologies, but we are going to resolve everything. So I think we are here. So I think we are here. Oh, so this is the screen people saw last. Sorry. Okay. Now, you people, this is it. This is it. This is it. People who do commerce, I want you to give me an example in business. I want you to give me an example in business. Hmm? Um, we all have factories. We have a factory. So you tell me, after a factory, who next? That's where I want. You tell me. Where does the factory take its goods? Okay, you tell me. Don't say, but for me, doctor, I buy from a factory. Let us be realistic. How do things from the factory reach you? Okay, a factory is making 1 billion sweets. How are you going to get just one sweet worth 100 shillings? But people here don't know businesses, I think. People here don't know businesses. Because I may talk of wholesale, I may talk of retail trade, and people don't get it. Okay, let me use biology. You all know that why photosynthesis is called photosynthesis. It's because it's made up of two words, photo and synthesis, simply meaning manufacture that happens in presence of light. And who provides light? The sun. That's why photosynthesis, the light stages cannot occur at some weird days. Sorry, at some weird times. Okay, so we have the sun, and you all know that the sun is the best friend to green plants. And you all know a green plant is fed on by what they call herbivores, big goats. Provided you went to a very good primary school, these words of herbivores, carnivores, they cannot confuse you. And you all know that our goats can be fed on anything. Maybe I may not use goats because it will be very hard for a lion to find a goat, because a lion is a wild animal and then a goat is a domestic animal, so it will be very hard for them to maybe collide. Who can give me any herbivore that stays in the wilderness? Give me any herbivore that lives in the wilderness, so that now the carnivore we talk about is a lion maybe. You people. Ah, some Someone is saying cheetah, another one is saying sheep. Ah. Some of you are very bad. I expected people to tell me the antelope. I don't know. Do you people know hyenas? Yeah. So the green plants can be fed on by the herbivores. Then the herbivores such as the antelope. The antelope can be hunted by what we call the hyena. I know that you people are aware. But again, this hyena in the same wilderness, it can be attacked by a lion. So I can say maybe higher carnivores. I always want to use examples that you people are familiar with, but some of you are just disappointing me. So the green plants, it can be something like grass. Yeah, grass. Then herbivores, we have the antelope, the higher carnivores. Sorry, the carnivores have the hind, but even the hyena can be attacked by a lion. So because both are carnivores, I can call these ones higher ones. But what they usually say in textbooks, they call these ones first order. First order or level 1, eh? First order or first level carnivores, then these ones are second order or second level. Yeah, this is going to help us solve so many terminologies. So you listen now. So remember, we said that this sign is just providing light energy, nothing much. We should also use the same sketch as we are explaining, maybe energy flow in the ecosystem. Yeah. So the sun just provides light energy, and the light energy will be used by the green plant, of course, to photosynthesize. Photosynthesize to produce food. I want you to listen. So because the green plant has used the light energy to produce food via photosynthesis, it's called the primary producer or just the producer. Why the primary? It's the one that is providing the ultimate source of food. So they can call it the primary producer or just producer. Yeah. The primary producer or just the producer, like that. Okay. Now the herbivores or the antelopes that feed on grass, they are called immediate consumers because no one is supposed to bring the grass to these antelopes. They look, okay. No one takes this grass to the antelopes. They actually look for the grass themselves and immediately feed on it. So they are immediate consumers. They consume the food immediately. Which food? You know, it is in form of starch. Immediately. So because they are immediate consumers, we call them primary consumers. We call them primary consumers because they are the immediate consumers. Yeah. So primary consumers. Now, when these herbivores eat the green plants, the energy they get from the food, the nutrients they get from the food are used to build their bodies. And after building their bodies, they are recognized by these carnivores. You understand? And these carnivores also feed on them later. So these carnivores are also consumers, but since they are coming later on, they are secondary ones. They are coming after the primary ones. So how do you really relate the two? I've said. However, we shall also see that again when we reach energy flow. Herbivores, when they feed on the green plants, they get a lot of energy, they get a lot of nutrients. So those nutrients are needed for building their bodies. And then later the carnivores feed on their bodies. That means they are also consumers. But since they are coming after primary, we call them what? Secondary consumers. Secondary consumers, yeah. Then after the hyena feeding on the antelope, it also gets energy and nutrients to build its body. Then later the lion feeds on it. That means the lion is also a consumer, but it's coming after secondary, and this makes it a tertiary consumer. These are things you study in O level. Just because when you reach A level, we add on other things. Yeah, we add on other things. So there are very big snakes that can feed on lions. Yes, it's very hard to attack a lion, but there are snakes that are very big. Yeah, so in case maybe the lion is very weak, maybe the lion is getting old and it cannot overprotect itself, there are actually snakes that can attack them. So in case they are what we call the third order or the third level, yeah, what we call the quaternary. 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 Or is ternary, quaternary, like this. Quaternary consumers. So in case there are any. So if any, the next ones are quaternary consumers. Remember, you can come up with your other chain and realize that after the tertiary consumer, there is some other consumer. Yes, that means it's the quaternary one. And usually that one is the ultimate consumer, the apex consumer, the one that comes last. So these consumers that usually come last cannot be attacked by any other. Even the lions in most cases, they are the apex consumers. They just become weak and die. So when we reach the apex, the limit of our chain, the next thing is death. And when death happens, of course, the people responsible for death in an ecosystem are the ones they call decomposers. Yes, because the bodies, after dying, they should decay. So the decomposers are responsible for that. So in O level, you were only talking about decomposers, but this time around, we shall also talk about what they call the detritivores. Hope people are writing slowly as we cover. Yes, we are about to complete the terms, and then the factors will be very easy. And we shall introduce ecosystems where you will have your research. Then the next thing shall be about energy flow. That will be next time. So the decomposers, I want someone who can give me 2 examples of decomposers and then one example of or one example to represent the detritivores. Or you can just tell us what detritivores are. Anyone to give us content? Or no one is aware? Examples of decomposers, you can write them in the chat, but I'm interested in the meaning of detritivores, because decomposers are everywhere in biology textbooks. Yes, Fad, but don't use more than half a minute.
Yes, thank you so much. Detritivores is an organism that feeds on dead or decaying organic matter called the detritus. For example, earthworm, termites, millipedes, and so on.
Which textbook? Okay, good try. So most of you know that right from primary, they used to tell you that decomposers, they're the ones that break down dead organic matter. As simple as that. They do that. And the basic examples, it is bacteria and fungi. And you need those examples so much. The examples, we have bacteria and fungi. Yeah. Then remember these ones, what are they doing? They are breaking down dead organic matter. Then these ones are feeding on it. You get? So what these things do, what these things do, the decomposers, they break down. So they help each other. So as this one is breaking down the dead organic matter, the other one can feed on it. And and you need to know, how do these ones actually feed on it? They break it down into small fragments. Yeah. And that dead organic matter we are talking about is called detritus. Detritus. So because of detritus, that's why they are called detritivores. Yeah. Just like you say herbivores, they feed on herbs. Of course, you know herbs mean plants. So herbivores. So because of detritus, we also call them detritivores, something like that. So you need to know, how do they feed on it? They first break it down into small fragments. So every time you remember or you see the word detritivores, think about small fragments first. Yeah. So as they feed, what do they do first? Break it down into small fragments. And these small fragments make it easy for the decomposers to do their work. What is their work? Their work is to break down. And then the other ones just feed on it. So there is a way they interact with each other. But what you know, decomposers, they break down. Detritivores, they feed on it. And what is the detritus? How do they do it? They first break it down into smaller fragments, which even makes it easier for these ones to break the matter down like that. Concerning how they do their things, because these ones are feeding on it, so for them they do it internally, so they do it by internal digestion. And because these ones are just decomposers, we shall see their mode of action. Just because you people don't do heterotrophic nutrition, so I may not stress myself by telling you that. But decomposers do it externally. Yeah. If this is the matter that is dead, how does the breaking down take take place, the bacteria come around the matter like that, and then they release enzymes. They release enzymes, the ones they call exoenzymes, and those enzymes are the ones that break down that matter. Why exoenzymes? It's what they call external digestion, that the bacteria doesn't take in the dead matter, but it rather releases those exoenzymes that are going to break down that matter externally. That means outside the bodies of the bacteria. But since the detritivores feed, the very first stage of feeding is ingestion. So they ingest the dead decaying matter after breaking it down into small what? Small fragments. That's the content about those things. So as we define them in our reference notes, you should know some little content about them. So that is it. From straight away from our sun, the ultimate source of energy, to the primary producers, primary consumers, secondary, tertiary, and the peak, the apex, the ultimate, the quaternary consumers. And then lastly, the decomposers and detritivores, and you know some content about the two. So we can now go and define very fast. Okay. So, you all know that for photosynthesis to take place, I don't know if you people studied the absorption spectrum and the action spectrum. It's studied under the mechanisms of photosynthesis. It's not only green plants that do photosynthesize, but we have algae. You understand? Remember, plants are green, so the blue-green bacteria can do the needful. There are also species of algae that do what? That do some photosynthesis, so they can make food. Yeah. Or produce food. That's why they are called producers. And who do they make this food for? For the herbivores. You understand? Yeah. So they are saying for the aquatic ecosystems. By aquatic ecosystem, they mean lakes and etc. Aquatic ecosystems, we shall see it's even part of your assignment. We have lakes, we have oceans, we have seas, we have fish ponds, and so on. Anything that has water and it has living organisms within it. It's what they call an aquatic ecosystem. So those producers that are inside water are what they call the phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons. Yeah, by planktons, they simply mean inside water. And by phyto, they mean, I don't know. Anyone who knows the meaning of phyto? If you people really read textbooks, what does phyto mean? What does phyto mean? I want you to realize the beauty of textbooks. If you don't read textbooks, you just keep just finding these statements and you don't understand them. I think Maurice wants to say something. Yes, Maurice, you tell your friends, what do phytoplanktons mean? What does phyto mean? And what does plankton mean? Phyto alone.
Phyto. Phyto simply means very important.
Means what?
And very important.
You're lying. You're lying. You people, I think, let me hurry. So phyto simply means plant, nothing else. Don't even lie to us again. Important. Which book are you reading? So phyto means plant, and when they say planktons, just think about something residing in water. Yeah. When they say plankton, you just think about water. So the microscopic algae and blue-green bacteria, it's like the plants of water. Why are they called the plants of water? They are the ones that do the photosynthesis and provide food for other what? For other organisms. And those organisms that feed on them also have a name. You write that name. You write that name in the chat. What name is given to the organisms that feed on these on the phytoplanktons? Who can tell us? You people are fun. So I've been trying to go through the chat because I don't want to leave anyone behind. So someone was saying, doctor, but a lion cannot feed on hyenas. Yes, it depends on the circumstance. Just cause just like just like the way they may tell you that maybe people in some regions of Uganda feed on grass, then you say that man cannot feed on grass. Yet really man can. Because even some herbal medicine is actually a certain species of grass. Though you may just take maybe the watery part of the herbal medicine. But it depends on the circumstance. I have seen someone saying, but it has a poisonous liver. Yes, the lions may be aware of that because of the adaptation I told you about. But all in all, lions are higher carnivores than hyenas. That's what I can say. And that's what the food chain meant. Or that's what the chain meant. That lions are higher carnivores than hyenas. So the animals that feed on the phytoplanktons, for them are now called the zooplanktons. And it's one word. I don't know why people have been writing two words. It's one word, like zooplanktons. Yeah. So why planktons? Because those animals are also supposed to be in water. And why do we say zoo? Because you people have heard of zoology, which is the study of animals. Yes, like that. So we shall also come across that word, but plankton is for only and only water. Okay, so they're saying life in oceans and lakes is almost dependent on the planktonic organisms, which are found at the beginning of virtually all food chains. Of course, they are the producers, so we expect them to be at the beginning. Don't consider the sun. The sun is just the ultimate source of light energy, nothing much. So we go, the herbivores, which are the primary consumers we explained, they feed on primary producers to obtain food, nutrients, and energy. For example, goats, zebras, buffaloes, antelopes, and etc. In aquatic, so when they say aquatic, expect the word plankton, if you like it or not. Yeah. So drifting animals, it's even here, zooplanktons. And I think some have even copied. I think people had not even actually seen that. So by drifting, they simply mean they are residing in water. You may not concentrate about the drifting part. Yeah, it's more physics. Okay, people know what drifting is. For example, protozoans, small crustaceans, mollusks. For example, the mussels and clams. This was some good classification in O level. So if you remember the crustaceans, the mollusks, protozoans, those are the ones that can feed on those small and microscopic plants. So the plants are also small and microscopic. Even the animals feeding on them, the zooplanktons, they are also small and microscopic. And the examples are so many. Yes, crustaceans. I don't know that people remember those things of echinoderms and so on. Yeah. Secondary consumers, phylum Annelida. Secondary consumers, the first level, first order, the tertiary at the second level. So the other thing we didn't note is the flesh. They feed on flesh. So when they say carnivores, you should take note of that word flesh. Yeah. And we all know what do they obtain? Food, nutrients, and energy. That was said. And those are very important. They are very important marking points. Even here on the primary consumers, they were also looking for food, nutrients, and energy. So in whatever you're doing, make sure you leave this lesson knowing that in ecology, when something feeds on something, it's really interested in the food, nutrients, and energy. If you eat rice, you really want to get some energy. And you know that rice is rich in a certain food nutrient that you really want to get. At school, you're given beans, and after lunch, you get energy. And you know that beans are rich in protein, so the food nutrient is actually protein, like that. So the tertiary ones, we said for these ones, they feed on secondary consumers. Yeah. So, they are giving you some definitions here. they are telling you that these carnivores have so many points. They can be predators. What are predators? Predators are those organisms that hunt, and after hunting, they capture, and after capturing, they kill another species, which we call prey, and they do that for food. And I usually tell my students this. What do? You hunt. And when you hunt, by God's grace, you capture. And when you capture, before you feed on that thing, before you eat, you're supposed to first kill it, then feed on it. So those 3 points, very important. So even when they are marking the meaning of the word a predator, they want to see the hunting part, they want to see the capturing part, they want to see the killing part, they want to see the feeding part. Most of you have seen eagles hunt on, many of you have seen eagles hunt on what? On chicks. What they do is to first survey, they survey like that. After surveying, the survey is the hunt. They get a very strategic position, they capture. After capturing, they use those sharp long nails and curved ones. They use them to kill those chicks. And after killing them, they now feed on them. But you should take note that what they feed on, they should feed on flesh and nothing else. If it's not flesh, they cannot eat it. So for them, they don't feed on dead meat. But who feeds on the dead meat? They are what we call the carrion feeders. The scavengers, the carrion feeders. I know that you people recall that in primary. That scavengers feed on the kind of food they call carrion. Then the predators feed on what they call flesh. Yeah, scavengers feed on carrion. Then carrion, take note, it is double R. Then the predators feed on what they call flesh. So that food they are talking of is supposed to be flesh. Then parasites, you know these ones, they don't benefit you, but they get nutrients from you. So they harm you, but for you don't benefit. Yeah. So they obtain nutrients from a living host. I think parasites, you've been hearing this since baby class. Something that is inside your body, it's obtaining nutrients from you, but for you not benefiting from it, but it's in the return trying to harm you, something which is very bad. So hope that makes sense. We go. So there are those they call omnivores. These ones I had forgotten them, but they are so common and they are known by most people. Why people know them? Because people are omnivores. So it may be like, but we've not been talked about. So man is an omnivore because for you can feed on flesh, you can feed on producers. Yes. Like a goat gets food from a plant, but as man, you can eat the plant and as well you can eat the goat. You see that? Yeah, something like that. They just added on they feed on organisms at different trophic levels. We shall see the trophic. So the trophic levels they are talking about, those are the things of producer, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer. They're the different trophic levels. But all in all, we just want to know that an omnivore can feed on both a producer and the flesh. Meaning, as a man, you can feed on dodo, which dodo can be eaten by the goat, and you can also eat the goat. So for you, an opportunistic person. Yeah. So decomposers and detritivores, we have talked about them. We've said that decomposers for you should just know to think this is bacteria and fungi. And you shouldn't forget that they are microorganisms. So they live as saprotrophs. But as I told you, heterotrophic nutrition is not part of your syllabus. So that's why I didn't talk about it so much. But there is what they call saprophytic feeding, which is a form of heterotrophic nutrition. Yeah. And what are they feeding on? Dead decaying organic matter. But also from primary, you know that saprophytic bacteria and fungi feeds on dome. What is dome? The dead organic matter. Yeah. So they are saying the dead organic matter includes the organism's dead bodies and excreta. Excreta is what the organisms have excreted. And what is excretion? They are the metabolic waste products from metabolism, or just waste products from metabolism, or the metabolic waste products. So we say that decomposers, just like the word says, decompose. What are we doing? We are breaking down. Yeah. And when we break down, what do we obtain? We obtain energy and nutrients, or what we call food. So food helps us get the food nutrients, and food gives us energy, because there are some components of food that can be, or that can take place in respiration, of course through oxidation, such as glucose, and we get energy. Yeah. So we are seeing a lot of energy is lost as heat in the process. Of course, and what brings about heat formation, of course, that is metabolism. You all know metabolism, strictly catabolism, is exothermic. Exothermic meaning we shall have heat being resolved. Yeah, that's why even some people sweat as they are eating, not because the food is hot, but because the metabolism that may later on take place, or that can even be currently taking place, releases heat. Yeah. So detritivores, we talked about them. What do they do for them? They feed on small fragments, or what you can call debris. Debris of what? Of dome, dead organic matter. And what do we call it? We call it detritus. And examples of the things that feed on detritus, our friend mentioned earthworms. But you can specify and say, I'm meaning the land earthworms, because there are so many. There's what they call wood lice. We have maggots. We have sea cucumbers. We have ragworms. We have mites. Yeah. But they will not over ask you about that. We just understand detritus. They are small fragments of dome. And the examples we have earthworms, period. You can add on wood lice and maggots. These are the ones you will forget. Trust me. Unless you read them towards the paper. Okay. So, here they were just talking about decomposition as a process. Decomposition is done by the bacteria and fungi. And you all know that for bacteria to work, you should provide it with food and water. You should provide it with food and water. You should provide it with optimum temperature. Should provide it with optimum temperature, food and water. Food or water, optimum temperature. That's why they are telling you that the activity, they are saying that the activity of decomposer there, and therefore the rate of decomposition, is more rapid in moist and warm. So by warm, it is the optimum temperature part. Then by moist, it is the water part. So bacteria needs those things to survive. So for bacteria to do the decomposition very rapidly, you should provide those things. Warmth in the name of optimum temperature, moist in the name of water. Yeah. And then these are just points to make that point stronger. They are not so important. Yeah. They are saying that the virtual absence of litter from the rainforest floor and low content of humus in rainforest soils by comparison with the conspicuous litter and significant humus content of soils in temperate or cold or beach woods reflect this point. So this is so important to the people of old curriculum. They used to ask them, explain why the temperate beechwoods have more litter than the rainforest floor. Just that, because it is just a statement in the BSA. That's why I didn't even want to read it. But I know there are those stubborn people who would never want to leave any stone unturned, and they will read. So it was so important to the OD curriculum. Yeah. but it's simply because of the decomposers. Yeah. So they are biotic or the non-living. These ones, you know them: soil, water, temperature, oxygen levels, of course, air, light intensity, nutrients, wind. Of course, wind is moving air. And of course, even water, you may find out that it is a nutrient. Yes. Okay. So, I think the abiotic factors are okay. And you know all of them. These are just notes. They shouldn't confuse you. Yeah. But they are saying the tendency of an ecosystem to maintain a stable state, a balance between the contribution of all its parts, it's called homeostasis. Homeostasis is a word to mean self-regulation, like the ecosystem being in position to self-sustain itself, self-regulate itself. It's what they call homeostasis. And we shall also talk about this topic. Yeah, it's a senior homeostasis is a topic of senior 6. It's a topic of senior 6 term 1. So they are saying small changes in the ecosystem will be normally encountered by feedback processes within and the equilibrium to be restored. So we shall see that feedback, we have negative and positive feedback, but we shall see all those points in that topic, homeostasis. Yeah. The topic is supposed to be taught in senior 6. However, according to the syllabus, you may have it in senior 5 term 3, but it's best taught in senior 6 because in senior 6 you do coordination, I think, for term 1. Then term 2 you do inheritance and evolution, then growth and development, then term 3 you do ecology. But senior 5 term 3, anyway, it's okay. Okay, now species, those ones are not hard. Let me see: biosphere, biomes. These things are easy. Population, community, those ones even looked at them. Ecological niche, ecotone, ecology, and we are going to be done. Yeah, so about species, this is something you've heard of before. You've heard of before. You remember those things they used to say? They used to say, who knows these things in order? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, then species. Yeah, they used to tell us those days. I think it was in 2013, 14. They used to tell us that kings play cards on flat green stools. Yeah, that was the thing. Kings play cards on flat green stools. And the last one was species. So they used to tell us a lot of things. They told us that these species are the ones that look closestly similar. Yeah. All the others, you may be in the same kingdom Animalia, but you don't actually look alike, but you're belonging to the same kingdom. You can look at insects and arthropods. Look at a spider and a housefly. They belong to the same kingdom, Animalia, same phylum, but they have different classes. So because of the different classes, there is a way they don't look the same. But when we go up to the species part, this is where organisms are very similar. So all you need to understand about species as a biology student is that these ones are similar. Similar, basically that. So when we read our definition, they are saying that species is a group of organisms with similar morphology, behavior, physiology, and genetic makeup that can interbreed freely to produce viable offsprings. That's the most important part. These are things you've been defining for some good time. So species is basically all about interbreeding freely to produce viable offsprings. That's why a donkey and a horse, they have same kingdom, same phylum, same class, same order, but they are different family and genus. So they are different species. That's why it's very hard for them to interbreed. And when they do so, they produce a mule, which is actually not a viable offspring. Very bad. Very bad. So interbreeding may happen, but you may not produce offspring that are viable. So interbreeding should be free, so that freely interbreed and the offsprings coming out should be viable. And by morphology is like the phenotype. Yeah. So that means you should understand what do they have, similar morphology, how they look like, similar genetic makeup, their DNA has the same structure. The physiology, they undergo similar physiological processes. Physiological processes, we have digestion, we have respiration, we have excretion, and so on. Behavior is in so many ways. This shall be studied under coordination. And you see that behavior, we have territorial behavior, we have associative learning, we have latent learning, we have habituation, we have imprinting. We shall look at all that. So for you just understand, no one is going to tell you, as a student, help us define species. No. So don't be stressed by how the statement is built up. That will come in when it's actually needed. For you just understand that when you see the word species, just recall one thing, similar stuff, and then free interbreeding, and then production of viable offsprings. Yes. And what is really similar? The morphology, which is like a phenotype, the form, yeah? How it is, okay, the external outlook is the morphology. Then physiology, I've told you some physiological processes, the genetic makeup, yeah. Their DNA has the same structure as we talked about. But of course, you may have someone will be like, doesn't it really mean genotypes? Yes, but we have different genotypes for different characters or traits. Someone is tall, another one is short, but both are human, so they may have the same external outlook. In a way, maybe, I think you get what I mean. When you look at humans, at least you see something common in their external outlook, the position of the head, of the arms, of the feet, and so on and so forth. Then by genetic makeup, us having a similar structure of DNA. Of course, genes make up DNA. Yes, that. Then the interbreeding that is free to produce offspring that are viable is the most important part here. Yeah. So species are very many kinds. Yeah. And you understand what they mean from how they are named. So you can see here they are saying native. So it is native that will help you understand what they mean. By native means you have at least where you stay. When they call you a native of Uganda, that means you live in Uganda. You get? When they call you a native of Kenya, that means you normally live in Kenya. So that's why they are saying these are species that normally thrive in a particular ecosystem. You're a native of you. Okay, they say those organisms are natives of the forest. That means they stay in the forest and they are comfortable there. That's why they are telling you that they normally thrive in that system. They are happily living wherever they are living. Those are the native species. And they usually don't leave those ecosystems. Those people who stay in the village from the very young age up to the old age, that means they are happily thriving in the village, so they won't live there. So you can call that person a native species. Yeah. You can see. Now these ones are alien species. Yeah, these are things in textbooks. And if at all species is one of the terms to be resolved, that means we need to talk about them as well. Yeah. Okay. Indicator species. Still, you're going to see as we read through the definition that it is the word indicator species. The word indicator is what is going to help us define. When they say keystone, it is the word keystone that is going to help us define. So let's read alien species. They're saying these are species that migrate to a particular ecosystem or are introduced into an ecosystem where they do not normally thrive. Igidela antana kamara in Uganda. I don't know whether you try to get that. There are things they usually call aliens, but do you know why they call them aliens? Because when they reach Earth, they don't look like human beings. I don't know whether you people are getting me. What they call an alien are those things that when they reach Earth, they don't look like the humans who are supposed to stay on Earth. So they call them aliens. You get? So any alien is just something that looks weird. For example, if at all, that's why when you enter a forest, the wild animals may attack you because now you're an alien to them. So alien species don't exist, but something just becomes an alien species. Yes. That's why when any organism goes into a territory of others, even if as a man you go into a territory of monkeys, they can chase you because now you're like an alien to them. That's why even as humans, if something comes up, it looks like humans as if they are not humans, we call them aliens because they are new to us. And in most of the cases, they cannot thrive where we are because of course of the uncomfortability. So there are species that migrate to a particular ecosystem or are introduced where they don't normally thrive. Okay, provided any species is brought into an ecosystem where it has no friends, where it has no relatives, and it's the only species of its kind there, that means it won't thrive. Simple as that. So indicator species, we shall see this in pollution. They shouldn't stress you, but because of the word indicator species, they help us indicate. They give us early warnings. I don't know that you people know indicators on cars. In case a car is going to make a turn to the left, it turns on the left indicator, trying to give the people in front an early warning or indication that I'm going to turn to the left. You know, they are getting. So these are species that normally serve as early warnings to a community, period. But when we reach pollution, we shall see the lichens and algal blooms, and you will understand it very well. Yeah, pollution was not anyway mentioned, but there are some parts that will need us to cover it because it's very important. We cannot leave it out. So, indicator species, they are simply early warnings, nothing much, as I've explained the case of a car. So when they say keystone species, so keystone, so they are key species. Even if you don't get the keystone part, but key, they are very key in the ecosystem. Yeah, so they are dominant, as you can see, dominant species, and they affect the abundance of others. Yeah, so it's like they can decide the population of others. They are keystone, they are dominant. They are the ones that dictate the community structure. So it's like we are just praising them as we define them. Dominant species indicate community structure. They affect the abundances of others like that. It's like they are the key species in the what? In the ecosystem. Nothing much. Yeah. That's why they're even talking of the top predators, like the lions. Lions can decide to prey on any other organism in the ecosystem. That means they are very dominant. They can dictate community structure. They can eliminate certain consumers, the primary ones. They can affect the abundance of others by overpreying on them like that. They are top predators. They are dominant. They dictate. They affect others. So they are very key keystone species. Yeah. Okay. Then the biosphere. We are only going to talk about the biosphere, but there are other spheres. But for today's lesson, we are only interested in the biosphere. Yeah, when they say sphere, sorry, it's part of the earth. When they say bio, they mean life. So it's that part of the earth where life is supported, period. If at all that's where life is supported, that means it's the part of the earth living organisms will actually occupy. As I've said, there are other spheres, but for now we are interested in only the biosphere. Remember the acid, wait. Yeah, I've been telling you that there are a lot of spheres, but for today we are talking of the biosphere. Remember, the Earth is spherical, and when they say sphere, it's part of the Earth, part of the spherical Earth. But for bio, it's where we support life. That's where the living things will actually reside. So there are basically two major divisions: the aquatic and terrestrial. So when they say aquatic, of course, they mean fresh water. It can be the seawater or the estuarine. Yeah. By marine, they mean seawater, then freshwater, then the estuarine. I think people studied estuaries in SST. Yeah. So by terrestrial, you can even search the internet now and be like, give me some images of the estuary. That's the spelling. Estuary. Let you look at them. So, even on land, we have divisions. So basically, for terrestrial, it's on land. Yeah, but they can divide it into so many things. So the large regions are the ones they call the biomes. Yeah, biomes. So you've learned another word, biomes. So what you need to know about biomes is that they are large. Don't overthink. So, but they are also saying, this is now geography, that the terrestrial biosphere can be further subdivided into biogeographic zones like Africa, Australia, North America, South America, Antarctica, and etc. So yeah, they are basically talking about the continents, the biogeographic. Yeah. So they're like, in this case, the divisions are made by barriers like oceans and mountain ranges. You can see that those continents are basically separated by oceans, by seas, mountain ranges, and so on. Yeah. But when they say biomes, just understand these are very large divisions. So even in the definition of biomes, the word large cannot miss. So, as a biology student, biomes, what do you need to know? Large regions, nothing much. And of course, because of biome, they belong to the what? To the biosphere. Yeah. Some biomes are aquatic or others are terrestrial. People, this is just English. Just English. Just English. What you need to know that different biomes have different organisms. That's why they are telling you that in each biome we have distinctive climate and specific vegetation. Man may not stay in a place that has a lot of vegetation, but there are organisms that actually prefer dense vegetation for them to stay around. So those large regions of the biosphere, so biosphere, biomes, large region, because different biomes have different organisms, that means even the climate they have is distinctive and the vegetation or the kind of vegetation they have is specific. Nothing much. They're thinking about others being aquatic, others terrestrial. Then the other thing they are talking about, so I want you to distinguish between a biome and the habitat. Yes. For what they call the habitat, this habitat for it is very specific. and have it in mind that the habitat, I don't know whether you're hearing this for the first time, but okay, let's first secure the biome, and then I'll talk about the habitat later. But in simple terms, I want you to I want you to look at but these things are easy. Actually, I had to give you this as research work concerning biomes. So have it in mind that biomes are very big and they have now different habitats. Look at these examples of biomes. They're giving you deserts, they're giving you the savanna grasslands, they're giving you tropical rainforest, they're giving you the temperate deciduous forest, they're giving you the tundra, they're giving you the coniferous forest or the boro forest, the taiga. Yeah, there are things you need to read from the internet in your free time and enjoy. The examples of biomes. So they are telling you that within this very biome, that's where we find the different habitats. For example, look here. We are having savanna grasslands, and they are telling you that savanna grasslands have a lot of what? Herbivores and predators. But not the herbivores and predators live in the same area. Yeah. Remember, all of them are in the biome, which is the savanna grassland, but they don't sleep in the same area. If at all, it's resting time. So those different areas they go to after the day hunt, they are now their habitats. That's what this statement meant. It's the only statement I want you to understand here, that within each biome, we have the numerous habitats. What do we mean? Like, for example, in deserts, yes, we have the hot deserts and the cold deserts. I don't know if people knew that. So, deserts have so many organisms, but the organisms don't live within maybe the same place. But this desert is having, take it as a school. The school has dormitories. They tell you this is a dormitory for the biological students. This is a dormitory this is a dormitory for the physical students. This is a dormitory for the art students. Or they tell you this is a dormitory for O-level students, or they tell you, okay, it is always dorm for senior 1, senior 2, senior 3, senior 4, senior 5. So look at the school as the biome, where you have so many students. Then look at the senior 1 class, senior 1 dormitory as now the habitat, where you will find senior 1s. So the senior 1 class is like the habitat of senior 1s. Then the school with the so many classes is what they call the habitat. Hope people now understand. So concerning these stories on tropical rainforests, on the tundra, on the taiga, you just read them in your free time. The very statements can be used in some of the scenarios in ecology. But don't worry, after here we are going to take some screenshots so that you're not disturbed. You're not disturbed. Okay. Environment, you know that those are things that are surrounding man from primary 5. Though here they try to make the English stronger, but they are still meaning the things that are surrounding man. So they are calling them a complete range of external conditions in which an organism lives. So the habitat, as I've said, it is your address, and they are calling it a specific locality within the biosphere where an organism normally lives. For example, underleaves for earthworms, ponds for frogs. Do you see that? Yeah, that the tree is very big, the forest is very big, but you only find earthworms under leaves. That the forest is very big, but you only find frogs in ponds. That the school is very big, but you only find senior ones in their class. So the senior one class, maybe senior one east, maybe senior one like that, is now the address of that student, but the school is now the biome, and it is within the biosphere, because of course we have life there that is being supported, things like that. So this topic has a lot of words, but you should just find ways of understanding them as you, so that when they mention habitat in the future, you know that is the address, the specific locality of that organism. So after habitat, we can have the microhabitat. And all you need to know is the word micro. And after knowing micro, when they say small locality, you cannot be confused. You understand? And because it is small, that means it is within a habitat that support particular organisms. You get? A case in point, assuming the senior one class is now the habitat. So your desk where you sit is now the microhabitat. You understand? In case you sleep in the senior 5 dormitory, now your decker is now your microhabitat. You know, they try to understand. Yeah, nothing much. Like the leaf, like for example here, they have said that if it's a leaf, the underside is preferred by earthworms and the upper side is preferred by mosses. You get? But the habitat is the leaf. But this leaf is on a tree, which tree is in the forest. So your habitat is the senior 5 class. Your desk where you sit is your micro habitat. Nothing much. Population, this one I try to communicate very well. And I tell you that population, when you see, think of same species. Are you seeing same species or particular? And we say they are living in a particular area or specific area. And I told you about this thing of the same time. Isn't it? For example, number of people in a country, what I call population census. Number of cedar trees in a forest or in a school, that is population. Then I told you about community, and I told you community, there are 2 or more populations. Understand? But remember, population is for a particular species. So if there are 2 or more, that means there are different what? Species. Yeah. And we say that they coexist and interact in a well-defined area or habitat. For example, all those things we say that could be in a school apart from the physical ones. The trees, the grass, the birds, the insects. So provided they're in a school and they are coexisting and they are interacting in the school, which is our well-defined area, that makes them a community. But as I say, just for you, make sure you know the meaning. When you know the meaning, you can capture these definitions. I told you for biology, you cannot understand each of the definitions. Like maybe you leave class and you can define them. No, that one can't happen. But at least you're supposed to leave class when whichever statement you read will make sense. When you know that a locality means a place. But in this topic, they like the word locality so much. So you may not use place, but rather use locality. Especially when you're defining what we call the habitat. But if it's not the habitat, you can now use the very word habitat. Like here, when they were defining community, they used the word habitat. But when they were defining habitat, they used the word locality. Yeah, like that. Okay, now the ecological niche. We shall come across the ecological niche again in the future. But this is it. You people, if at home you're known for washing utensils, if in your class you're known for doing all proofs of trigonometry, what you're known for where you stay is your niche. Period. What you do best where you stay is your niche. If they know you for cooking good rice at home, so what you do best is cooking rice at home. So that is your niche. Period. If you're good at doing mechanisms in class, that is your niche. Like that. So have it in mind that a niche is your profession. And they're saying it's a particular role and place a species occupies in the habitat. Yeah. You get? So they are like, we know that person at home, when they enter the kitchen and start cooking rice, they will produce the best. So it is your particular role and place a species occupies, or you occupy in the habitat. Nothing much. So leave this place knowing it's the profession and address. So it has two things, your profession and the address. Or for you just understand, my niche is what I do best where I stay, or at my place, or in my habitat, or in the ecosystem. You can even make it like that. That's what they call the niche. So there are topics we are going to come across in the future. And there are also definitions we are going to resolve later on, like predation, like competition. Yeah, competition, predation. But they are very serious things. We shouldn't take them lightly, because we even have what we call the predator-prey relationships. They are very important. Now, what else? What else? What else? So here they are talking of two kinds of niches, the fundamental and the realized niche. I remember teaching you people last time how to read textbooks. I want you to, I'm just worried because of these words like competition and predation, but I think you know what predation is. Predation, I told you we are having two things, a predator, which is hunting, and the prey. So the prey is what they're actually hunting. Then the one hunting is the predator. Then for competition, competition, you know what it means. We are fighting for the same thing that we both need to survive. You get? Both of us want to survive and we are competing for the same thing. So we are fighting for it, we are thriving for it, we are striving for it. That's what competition is. And we shall see the types of competition, the interspecific and intraspecific, and we shall see what each does. So I remember teaching you how textbooks are read in biology. I don't know if you people recall how textbooks are read in biology. So I want you to read what the fundamental niche is having and what the realized niche is having, and then tell me which word there is not clear. You know what a niche is? It is your profession in your address. Wherever you stay and what you do best, that is your niche. That for me, I stay at home and I'm good at watching utensils. I'm in senior 5 sciences and I'm good at doing proofs of trigonometry. I'm a member of Manifest Fellowship and I'm good at leading the choir whatsoever. So where you stay and what you're good at where you stay, that's what they call the niche. So you read the fundamental and realized niche. I told you that in this topic, it is these words that help you understand that now this niche is fundamental, this niche is just realized. So when you read the definition, you should be trying to relate it to the meaning, the English meaning of fundamental and the English meaning of realized. Nothing much. That's a good thing with ecology. It's not like other definitions, like now defining a synapse. It doesn't recall it, so it doesn't correspond to anything in whatever it has. Defining things like temporal summation and spatial summation in other topics. But ecology should make it your friend. You people, that means no one is reading the definitions of the two because I'm not getting a response from any of you. I don't know. You people, I told you to read the definitions of fundamental and realized niche, but no one is telling me anything. I hope to point out the competition and predation, but again, maybe people are not understanding. So you're not easy. So let me tell you this. There is what they call life. So there is what they call ideal life. Then there is what they call real life. The ideal life is that life you would want to live. You understand? Maybe you'd be like, maybe I will be rich. Be like, maybe I will be rich. But then there is what they call real life because it's just a wish. You wish. You understand? You just wish that maybe I will be rich. But then ground biralam in actual sense you are poor. That's now they call real life. So what they call a fundamental niche is this organism trying to find what they call ideal life, trying to assume how will things be freely. I don't have anyone I'm competing with, and I have no one trying to do predating on me. I don't know if I'm getting, but that one cannot happen. It's just a wish. It's just a wish. That's why we call it the fundamental niche. So the fundamental niche, simply we call it to the ideal life. Then the real life is that realized niche. Realized from real, yeah? Realized from real. Things that happen now. Real stuff. What happens? Competition must be there, predation must be there. So that is it, yeah? So just look at fundamental niche and realized niche as ideal and real life. Real life is that life you'd want to live. Then the ideal life is what actually happens in most of the cases. Yeah. So fundamental niche is how the organism maybe would live if competition and predation wouldn't be there because no organism would want those things. Then the real life is what actually happens. Because if there is no predation, that means it will also not survive. Because for it to survive, it's supposed to prey on other organisms. Things like that. Competition must happen so that the fittest actually survives. So they are always part. Something like that. So you just need to know the meaning. Don't stress yourself with how the statements are built. That's not a goal of the competence-based curricula. So physical conditions under which a species might live in absence of those constraining factors. Then with realized niche is now the circuit. When those constraining factors, when the constraints, the constraining factors are present, then for fundamental, they're absent. Yeah. These things of ecotone, these ones are obvious. Region between two adjacent ecosystems containing a mix of species from either ecosystems and usually species not found in either. This is really easy. For example, you people know that sea. You know that sea that has over, there is a sea that meets a certain sea. You get? So ecotone is like a boundary between two ecosystems. but that boundary still has now a mixture. You get, like they're saying, a wetland between dry land and open water lake. Small trees between a grassland and a forest. You understand that you're having a grassland, and then you're having forests somewhere, or you have a forest there, then you have your grassland. Then they are telling you that you may have small trees here. These ones. Now this is the grassland, this is one ecosystem. This is the forest, another ecosystem. And maybe these small trees have some grasses also, like that. Yeah? So now this is what they call the ecotone. Ecotone. It is a boundary of these ecosystems. It's their meeting point, and it's having a mixture of species from either short grasses from the grassland, the small trees from the forest. That's what they call the ecotone. Very obvious. We have what we call autoecology, which is written like that, and then ecology. So you need to understand here that here we deal with a single species, or what you may call a population. Then here we deal with many species, or what you may call what? A community. Hope you understand it. You're just studying them. Yeah. You're just studying their ecology. Here you study the ecology of a population, then here you study the ecology of a community. Hope you people distinguish between a population and a community. Things like that. Yeah, things like that. Now, the factors have a lot of biology. A lot of biology that is serious. The factors. Let me try to check here. Maybe something hard to give you. So, autoecology, it's just population sign. It's that, not hard. Now, there are a lot of things we are supposed to learn here. Things like mimicry, things like, there are a lot of things. I really thought, anyway, concerning temperature, we shall have to bring in enzyme activity. And then, I think I'm going to share this summary. There are a lot of things. The biology is serious. Here, quantity, duration, and intensity of light. There is also some serious work there. Water current, wave action there, the work is not serious. Wind and air moving currents, not much. These ones, not much. Fire, not much. This one's not much. I think the problem is on these ones, the biotic factors. Okay. Let's enjoy the biology, because the next time we meet, it's supposed to be energy flow in an ecosystem. Let's enjoy, because they are not much, but they have some good content. So the next learning target, yeah, you know me, with my targets, I always want to achieve them. So the meaning of ecology, we got done. The importance of studying ecology, we got done. Resolving common terms, we are done. The research is coming. So we are now handling the very last thing. Which are the factors. And we just need 10 minutes and we are going to be done. So just stay sober for 10 minutes only. Introducing ecosystems, we are just going to define, and it's where you have your research, because most things have been said. And then we shall go with our aiding, which is the energy flow in an ecosystem. So without wasting time, what are we looking at? We are looking at the factors that are affecting distribution of organisms in an ecosystem, and we are going to begin with the abiotic ones. The other things are not hard because now most of the things have been talked about, and the content here is in other topics. So in case I read a statement and it doesn't make sense, you're supposed to ask. You're supposed to ask. Okay, let's read together. We are beginning with temperature, the first abiotic factor, physical factor, or non-living factor, or chemical factor that is affecting distribution of organisms. This is very important in this topic. Yes, distribution. Okay, they are saying if temperature of living cells falls far below freezing point, so what you need to understand is that the cells yes, Maurice. So what you need to know, I don't know why Maurice is quiet. So what you need to know is that our cells have aqueous cytoplasm. So when we say freezing point, we actually meaning 0 degrees. Yeah. Because by aqueous we mean water, and the freezing point of water is 0 degrees Celsius. Okay. So we are saying if temperature of living falls far below freezing point, of course, what do we expect? Freezing. And when freezing happens, we form ice crystals. And these ice crystals end up damaging cells. You understand? And then on the other hand, if the temperatures are too high, but they are supposed to be too high beyond optimum. Yeah, if it's not beyond optimum, nothing can happen. Yeah. So you fix the word beyond optimum. Yeah. Of course, we all know that this below 0 degrees is below optimum. Yeah. If the temperatures are high beyond optimum with the nature enzymes, but remember enzymes are protein in nature. So yeah, they just said the nature's proteins, including enzymes. Hope that is okay. So the content under these factors is not even under ecology. They are getting content from other topics. So that's why when I read some points, I'll be telling you to wait for some topics. So you bear with me. Or we can even be forced to talk about everything now. Okay. What are they saying? Let us read these statements together because the subject biology is about reading. No shortcut. Areas with extreme temperatures can be occupied by few organisms. When they say extreme, don't think they mean the hot only. By extreme, it can be extremely cold areas, or it can be extremely hot areas. Extremely cold areas, extremely hot areas. Something like that. So they are saying for those few organisms, why they are very few? Because adapting is not easy. So those few organisms that manage to adapt to survive in those areas or in those extreme temperatures, and they are telling you the survive or the adaptation is either structure or metabolic. You understand? So by structure, maybe they developed structures that can help them survive, or there are structures on their bodies that help them survive. By metabolic, that means they do that inside their bodies. Maybe they learned how to moderate or regulate their metabolism to fit the requirements of the new environments. Nothing much. So they are saying that between the extremes, that is between the cold and hot, we have what we call the temperature that is optimum. You get? Yeah. So, and we always have this, this is called the temperature quotient. It is there in FA. You can read about the temperature content. That between the extremes, between the cold and hot, every time you increase the temperature by 10 degrees, the metabolic rate doubles. You increase more 10, the metabolic rate doubles. Not until you go beyond the optimum. Now denaturing comes in. But provided you're beyond the cold and you're below the hot extremes, they are in between. Every time you increase by 10 degrees Celsius, the metabolic rate doubles. Nothing much. Okay. Now they are saying that other than enzyme activity, of course, metabolism is controlled by enzymes. So when I say enzyme activity, I mean metabolic activity. So as I'm explaining these parts, I'm going to speak a lot of biology. So you need to be taking note. Yeah. Yes, these are enough notes and are very good, but there are those statements I add on, like metabolism is enzyme control. So temperature may also affect the following activities. Which activities are those? Soil formation, migration, transpiration, sweating rates, photosynthetic rates, vernalization, germination, breakage of bud dormancy, hibernation, estivation. That's why I told you that ecology is very rich because it brings in other topics like hibernation and estivation. That one is added in temperature regulation, which is under homeostasis, of which I don't know whether some people have covered or not. But which topic do I refer you to as of now? Hibernation and estivation, it is under homeostasis. They are talking of vernalization and germination. Which topic do I refer you to? Growth in plants. And some of you are very well aware that you've not yet covered it. So if I start talking about vernalization and germination, it will be very hard. But for photosynthetic rates, at least you agree with me. But then you may be like, photosynthesis, you all know it is also enzyme controlled. Yes. You know that in the dark stages, we have enzymes like picarboxylase oxygenase in the C3 pathway. Yes. We have enzymes there in the C4 pathway. If you all know, we have there our pepco, the pepcarboxylase. That means that enzymes are actually involved in photosynthesis. So temperature, if temperature affects enzyme activity, that means it also affects photosynthesis. The other things of sweating and transpiration are obvious. Because transpiration, we need to lose the water vapor. Of course, temperatures must be present for water vapor to be formed. And transpiration is just the sweating in man or sweating in plants, sorry. Yes, soil formation may need bacteria or it may need the decomposers, isn't it? And we say decomposers need optimum temperature. So I think you can see that. As far as breakage of dormancy is concerned, we shall see that also under growth in plants, which is topic 8, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. So they are saying just like light intensity temperature is broadly dependent on latitude. Latitude is the distance from the equator. That's why areas nearest to the equator are very hot. Season, if it's the dry season, then temperatures are very hot. Time of the day, of course, the mornings have mild temperatures, afternoon very hot, evening mild, and at night they may turn out to be cold. Then as aspect of the slope, there's what they call the leeward side and the windward side of a mountain. And you all know the higher you go, the cooler it does what? The cooler it becomes. So that's what they mean by the aspect of the slope. Okay. Now, light intensity. So have it in mind, light intensity is not enough. Yes, the intensity may be too much, but with poor quality. And you're giving it to us for a long time, yet it is poor quality. So what do we always need? We always need light with enough intensity, light that is good quality, and provided for enough duration. not again giving us very good light for long hours. Anything, okay, too much of anything is always bad. So have that in mind as far as light is concerned. Intensity alone is not enough. It should be of good quality and provided for enough time. Okay, so you all know photosynthesis needs light, and it was mentioned first. You know the stomata cannot open if at all light is not there. They open in response to light, you know that. Chlorophyll formation, you know that chlorophyll is the green pigment that actually absorbs light, isn't it? That means we actually need light to form it. Very obvious. It's a green pigment that helps us with light absorption. So, light plays a role in its formation. I don't know whether people try to get, like for the chlorophyll to be in position to have a function of light absorption, light should make sure it contributes something as chlorophyll is being made, so that light tells us what it really needs chlorophyll to have for it to give itself to the chlorophyll for absorption, something like that. Yeah. They are talking of bleaching, they're talking of vitamin D synthesis. You know that they usually tell you go out in the morning, that morning sun can give you vitamin D. You know those things. Germination, right from primary, no light is needed. Flowering, you get, there is a way flowers open, just like stomata. So for flowering to happen, you will see that also in you see that in coordination of plants. They'll talk about flowering, and you learn a lot of things there concerning the long day and short day plants. You also look at flowering in the due course. Yeah. Mating, of course, mating cannot happen in the dark. Bulb formation, I don't know whether you people know bulbs. Do you people know bulbs? I am aware that an onion is an example of a bulb. They are talking of etiolation. We shall see this in coordination in plants. Etiolation is just elongation of the what? Of the stem. You can even just check the internet as you're reading and be like, what is etiolation? Shall see that in coordination in what? In plants. Breakage of seed dormancy. Vision, of course, we need light to have enough vision. That's why it's very hard to see in the night, in the dark. So we need light to see very well. That's why in the dark you turn on a torch to give you that artificial light to see what you want. Yes. They are talking of and drives electrons from atoms. I think you people know the cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation. We see those electrons trying to move, but it's under the influence of light. You get breakage of seed dormancy. We shall see this in undergrowth. Undergrowth in plants. We talk about dormancy somewhere. So you can see how rich these factors are. So you just need to be rich in content. You can see we are moving from this topic to the other, from this topic to the other. Vitamin D synthesis is under chemicals of life. Photosynthesis is under nutrition. Closing of stomata, that is under transport. Chlorophyll formation, that is under nutrition. Vitamin D synthesis, I've said chemicals of life. Germination of seeds is under growth. Flowering is under coordination. Mating is under reproduction, which is not on the syllabus. Bioformation, I can get that from practical, even classification, which you don't have on the syllabus. You see that? Etiolation is under coordination in plants. Breakage of bud dormancy is under growth. Vision is under still coordination. Then driving electrons from atoms, we talked of cyclic photophosphorylation, which is under nutrition. So you need to be rich in content for you to get these things well. So where you don't get, at least note the topic that I've referred you to. Yeah. But these are summaries, so they try to bring everything out. So you don't need to overthink. So they are putting for you notes here. What are they saying? Light intensity is affected by the angle of incidence of the sun's rays to the Earth's surface. This varies with latitude. We talked about all these things and the point of temperature. But both temperature and light intensity, they depend on those things. Then for photo period, I'm not going to waste time to talk about it now. But I told it is in coordination where we shall talk about flowering. Yeah. Photo period is basically about flowering, very important in plants, but there are also photoperiodic responses in animals, especially those that live along the sea and those that hibernate. Yeah. Okay. Hope you people have gotten something. We proceed. The subject is about reading, so assume you're having an overnight, or assume you're reading as a person. Remember, we are talking about how these factors distribute or affect the distribution or influence the distribution of organisms. So they are saying water currents. Where are these ones? They are in streams and rivers. You get? So they are saying that only species capable of swimming or avoiding strong currents can survive in open water, which is obvious. Those that are incapable, they cannot survive. And for them, they can only survive under stones or in burrows and crevices in the bank. Crevices are just like bricks. I don't know if you've ever seen a rock that has cracks. So those are what they call crevices. You see that? So that's how water currents affect the distribution. That those that can swim in open water, they will be in water. Those that can't, they will be in the burrows, they will be under stones and rock crevices. You get? It is done. Where you don't get, raise up your hand. I may not have time to go through the chart. Wave action. It's also the same. If at all the organism is very fast and may not be over affected by waves, then they are very safe. So they are saying that organisms with special adaptations. A moment. Okay, where are we? Organisms with special adaptations to survive periodic buffering by the wave and exposure to air inhabit areas with strong waves. That is it. So how these factors affect the distribution? For example, temperature. If at all the place is having very high temperatures, it will have organisms that can adapt to them, or that can withstand them, or that can tolerate them. Those that can't tolerate will go for other regions. That is all. So as far as wave action is concerned, all organisms that can survive waves can stay in those areas that have strong waves. You understand? And they are telling us sessile organisms like sea anemones and burrowing shrimps and sandhoppers can manage these areas. Sessile alone means immobile. Yeah? By sessile, they mean those organisms that stay in one place. I don't know if you watched them on Nat Geo World. Yeah, Nat Geo World is one of the channels you're supposed to watch if you have to be a good student of ecology. Sessile, they are immobile. For them, they just stay in one place. However strong the wave is, for them, they just stay there. They are sessile. So that means for them, they can survive. They can survive. Yeah. They're giving you another point here. They're saying seaweeds are tough and they have firm attachment onto rocks. And because of that, they can survive in areas of strong waves. That however strong the wave may be, since this seaweed is strongly attached or firmly attached onto a rock, it will not be moved. It will not be moved. You like it or not? It will not be moved. Yeah, it will not be moved. Hope you see that. So we have wind and air moving currents. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. If at all a plant doesn't have strong roots, then it cannot be in areas where winds are very fierce. You get? But if the plant is having a strong root system and tough stems, that means they can survive in exposed places where winds are fierce. You get? if we are talking of humidity, it's only those organisms that can experience weird conditions of humidity that can stay where those weird conditions are. So don't overthink this. It's about organisms withstanding and tolerating the extremes of the conditions or factors we are talking about, and those that can't they find other places. You get? Period. Just like you leave a school with a lot of fees and you go to that you can manage, that means fees is affecting distribution of students in Uganda. How? Where poor students leave schools that pay highly and go for schools they can manage, like that. They are saying that wind affects distribution of organisms by a moment. Hope my screen is back. Hope my screen is back. So they are saying that wind also affects the distribution of organisms by influencing transpiration rates. So you should know that as transpiration is happening, when that water vapor leaves the stomata and then wind comes and sweeps it away, that means transpiration is going to continue, so it will increase. Sweating rates, I don't know if you people have ever been, I don't know if you have ever been sweating and then wind comes a bit. When it comes a bit, there is a way you feel good and more sweating actually happens. You can understand? Because as you're sweating, you're losing water vapor. So the wind comes and sweeps away that water vapor. So more sweating happens. Dispersal, you've heard of wind dispersal, especially in those weird flowers, where the dispersal can occur, and then the seeds, the pollen grains, and so on. Things of olive oil. Migration of flying animals, wind plays part. Yes, those insects that fly. Wind can facilitate their actually motion. Yeah. And so many other things. Pollination. Wind can make pollen grains move from anthers to the stigma, especially in those kinds of flowers where the male part is on a different plant, and also the female plant or the female part is on another plant. You get? The stamen is somewhere else, and then the female part is also somewhere else. I don't know if you have heard of that. The stamen is the male part of a flower. Who knows what name is given to the female part of a flower? Who knows it? The stamen is the male part of a flower. Then the female part of a flower, how is it called? How is it called? Female part of a flower. People are quiet. You've forgotten. It's called the pistil. Someone is saying stigma. You people are not reading. Hey, someone is saying the style. You've forgotten this thing, which is very bad. The female part is called the pistil or carpel. And it is the pistil that has the stigma, style, and ovary. People are just giving me parts of now the pistil or the carpel. The male part is now the what? The stamen. And hope you people know the components of the stamen. But those are things that you should have. I think you can see now, if you don't know pollination, that means you cannot understand this point. But I've tried to give you the general outline or the general meaning of all these things. Rainfall formation, windward side, leeward side. When explaining rainfall formation, P7 work, wind takes part or plays part. Atmospheric gases saturation. Of course, there are gases in the atmosphere. So for them to be saturated, wind must come in. And anything to do with saturation, wind takes part. So when you see saturation anywhere as part of the importances of wind, you just tick. You just tick. Don't waste time. Okay, humidity. You people are not hearing humidity for the first time, at least that I'm sure. That I'm sure. Humidity it concerns the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. You get, And you know that if at all it is too much, then it is very hard for sweat to be lost from the body, and also water vapor to be lost from the leaves of plants. You get? That's why they are telling you that it influences evaporation of latent heat from leaves, hence cooling the plant, and evaporation of sweat, hence loss of heat and cooling. But when this humidity is low, that means the water vapor is not too much saturated in the atmosphere. That means we can lose more from leaves and we can lose more from the human bodies, both of which are important in what? In cooling. As simple as that. Both of which are important in what? In cooling. Yeah. Then topography, you all know from geography. Topography is like what we call relief. Relief is the nature of the landscape. That's why they are talking of things like altitude. You all know the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. So when you read this altitude, trust me, you will understand. They are talking of aspect. That's because I don't know if you have some students here who do bag. This is something they can enjoy very well. Yeah. But aspect, you'll also read through and they are very okay. There is no content. That's why I'm even lazy to explain. But they are just talking about the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. Then even here they're talking of higher altitudes and maybe lower altitude. Those things of the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, things like that. Then they are talking of the slope, or what they call the gradient, or the steepness of the slope. Yeah. And you all know if the slopes are steep, there is faster drainage. Who doesn't know that? And runoff. So those things are not hard. Yeah? And those are the only three topographic factors: altitude, the aspect, and the steepness or the gradient. Yes. Okay. Then fire is also very important. Shall come across it. It's only topography that we shall come across again in the topic. But even fire will come. But who doesn't know that fire is just there to destroy? So since it destroys, it's there to decrease population density. Yeah. And of course, it's only those plants that are fire resistant. Of course, they are saying plants because I don't think there is any animal that is fire resistant. So they are basically plants. So they are giving you the positive and negative effects on an ecosystem for fire. And trust me, when you read through, how can you fail to understand anything that deals with fire? That it enhances germination, but only in some grass species, of course, not all. It breaks seed dormancy. They gave you an example. It decreases population density, I've explained. It accelerates cycling of materials, isn't it? Stimulates flowering, improves visibility of animals in bushes, results in development of fire-resistant grass species, isn't it? When fire continues for some good time, some grasses learn how they can tolerate it, so they turn out to become Fire resistant. In case any point is not clear, you ask me again. Destroys useful organisms like nitrogen-fixing bacteria. You know that. Maybe when it becomes too much, especially due to bush burning, some of the issues of bush burning, that fire may affect the soil organisms. Yeah. Damages the structure of soil, changes vegetation type from shrubs to grassland. I think concerning fire, those things are obvious. Have not left anyone. Yeah. These ones are just notes. Yeah, these are just notes. And I know you'll understand. They're also talking about fire. Fire, fire, fire. Okay. Soil oidaphic factors. We talked about this in the beginning. Yeah. So you know in O level we used to talk about the components of soil. We say soil has organic matter, soil has air, soil has water, soil has mineral salts. So that means there is nothing here totally. I told you this topic is just rich, but soil, you just need to know its components and the role of its components. And whichever segment you read, if you've been listening to me, then you will understand. And if you know what ecology looks at, because you read this statement, they are saying plants living in soil deficient of a particular element have special adaptations of obtaining it. You understand? So if plants are living in a place that has soil which is lacking a particular element, there are two ways. They either adapt to living without that element, or they find ways of obtaining it. That's what they call ecology. And they're telling you here that many ions, when in high concentrations, are toxic to particular plant species, and this can put a limit to distribution ranges. You get? In case a plant species is living in a certain area where a certain ion is in very high concentrations, that means those concentrations are going to turn out to be toxic. And the moment they turn out to be toxic, that means we are going to affect distribution of that plant. So trust me, for you to understand ecology, you must have basic knowledge in all other topics. That's why I even didn't want to cover it, but I was forced to so that you appreciate as we progress. You're supposed to have basic knowledge from all the other topics. You should have understood all the terminologies we have been deriving together today. You must have good English. You cannot pass ecology if your English is not good, because for it doesn't have physiology, it doesn't have essay work that you're going to describe the structure of DNA. No, you're supposed to have good English and you have basics of other topics so that you come out with your own new statements, which actually work. Now they are talking of oxygen concentration and they are talking of aerobes and anaerobes. That is respiration. That means you should have basic knowledge from respiration. Increase in oxygen levels, increase number of aerobes. And it will poison anaerobes. Remember, anaerobes, they don't require oxygen. So, high oxygen levels are actually toxic or poisonous to anaerobes. But again, they are good for aerobes. You get? That's oxygen concentration for you. Carbon dioxide, it is the reverse. You know, it's needed for plants that do photosynthesis. Remember, it's a raw material. And you know, in case we need acidic rain, it is very important because in chemistry, I told you that carbon dioxide is an acidic oxide. Because when dissolved in water, it gives us carbonic acid. So acidic rain will have carbonic acid. So they are talking of the greenhouse effect. So carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. We shall see that in details when you reach the greenhouse effect. They are talking of pH. You know that pH, it is either acidic or basic. You understand? So it depends which pH is required. There are those organisms that need acidic pH. There are those that need alkaline pH. There are those that need the neutral pH, or what they call the optimum for some. Yeah. So this is it. Only organisms tolerant to unsuitable pH will exist in those conditions with unsuitable. Do you see that they are the same things? Just like they said in temperature, that only organisms that can tolerate extremes are the ones that will exist in those areas with the extreme temperatures. And they also talked of activity of the organism being highest when temperature is optimum. The same thing, activity of the organism is highest when the pH is optimum. Have it in mind that the optimum pH of any organism can be acidic, can be alkaline. Look at the stomach. Just because you people don't do digestion, which is very bad, but the stomach has an enzyme they call pepsin, which actually requires an acidic pH. So that means acidic pH is its optimum. When you go to the intestines, we have things like the maltases. Maltases that work under alkaline pH. That means it's their optimum. You understand? So optimum pH is simply a pH that works for a certain organism. Like man The optimum temperature for man is about 37, but 37 is very low for organisms that live in hot springs, and it is very high for organisms that live in the Alps. I don't know whether you people know the Swiss Alps in Switzerland. They have a lot of snow. You see? Now the next point here is now water availability. So here they are talking of the kinds of plants which you shall look at. I think it's under homeostasis. Actually, osmoregulation, xerophytes, mesophytes, hydrophytes. There are those they call halophytes. Halophytes are the ones that live in marine habitats. So I think you see, for you to come out and say that ecology, that's why it's the very last topic in the syllabus. You should have knowledge from those other topics. You get? But have it in mind that xerophytes are the ones that live on land. So because they live on land, let me put for you land. So because they live on land, they must have adaptations that give them greater tolerance in areas of water shortage. You understand? Because chances are high that in areas of water shortage, chances are high that land will have water shortage. So if xerophytes inhabit land, that means they should have adaptation, yes, in case water shortage kicks in. You get? Then hydrophytes, the way you hear the word hydro, that means for this one, they stay where? In water. So what are they saying here? They are saying these ones grow in areas with plenty of water because they have low tolerance to water shortage. Do you see? If you have good English, you easily understand that statement. But because they're hydrophytes and they grow in water, that means they are trying to show us that without water they can't grow. So their tolerance to water shortage is very low. They cannot tolerate areas without enough water because it's where they actually grow from. Now, between xerophytes and hydrophytes, xerophytes on land, hydrophytes in water, in between we have what we call the mesophytes. That's why for them their tolerance to water shortage is just medium. Yeah. And they just say medium tolerance to water shortage because they are just there in the middle between the xerophytes and hydrophytes. And you as you make research, you realize the word zero is to do with dry stuff. Yeah? Even in medicine, most diseases that are to do with dry mouth, dry lips, dry tongue, most of them begin with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's the zero. That's zero for you. Hope you're still at the same page. Animals with adaptations for gaining or conserving water can successfully occupy dry habitats on land. I don't need to explain this thing to you, but you just need to have good English for you to understand that the organisms or the animals we are talking about, they can conserve water, they can gain water. Since they can conserve water, that means they can survive in dry habitats on land because they have their water they conserve. So for them, they have no problem with staying in what? In dry habitats. You get? Salinity, it is basically salt concentration. So it's only those organisms that can tolerate high salt concentrations that can occupy habitats like salt marshes. Is that really hard? Though they are relatively very few, but they are there. We have background. Yes, it's there in FA. FA explained it very well. Background. Organisms given camouflage by the environment or shape will be many in that particular area. You get? That's why you find green snakes only in green forests because the forests are green and the snakes are green, so they can give them camouflage. So most of the green snakes will want to be in the forest because that's where they can camouflage well. That's why you find certain chameleons on rocks, but chameleons, those ones can have any color. So for them, they can occupy maybe a variety. Those ones change color, but I'm talking of organisms that already have a particular color. They always prefer certain habitats that can give them camouflage. So because camouflage is very important in hiding away from predators and actually attacking prey. So I think that's very understandable. So all in all, background is about camouflage. You get? So we are remaining with only and only biotic factors. Yes, biotic factors, you just need to know what they mean. And I already talked about predation. I talked about all the things I've talked about them apart from mimicry. And then the ecosystem, we shall reach on it. Yeah. So predation is not hard. I'm supposed to hit my target even if I stay here alone. Yes, you're going to study. Let's read together. We are reading biology. Past midnight, predation. So the predator, I told you, always hunts the prey. So have it in mind, the prey is smaller, but usually not all the times. You know what usually means? Then the predator is usually bigger, but not all the times. So we said it hunts, after hunting it captures, after capturing it kills, and after killing it eats. That is it. Yeah. So they're telling you that predators are more distributed where there is more prey. So of course, if you want food, that means you're supposed to be in areas with food. So you cannot be a lion and you're in areas of snakes. You're supposed to be a lion in areas that have antelopes. You get it? Then competition has something you're supposed to talk about, which people usually forget. If at all, for you to come out and say that we are competing, maybe in business, that means the customers are very few. Yes, maybe the customers are very few, and maybe something like that. For you to say that at school students compete for food, that means the food is not enough. So all in all, for you to say competition, it should be struggle, but for only the scarce resources. If the food at school is enough, you cannot say we compete for it. You only compete for something that is really not enough, and everyone is really struggling, striving, and thriving to have it at hand. So have it in mind, competition is for only and only what? The scarce resources. And I told you it's either interspecific or intraspecific, but we shall see it as a topic. Yeah. You get? So we say that the competitor who is poor is always outcompeted. And after getting outcompeted, it can even go to extinction, because it will be dying and it will be starving and dying, starving and dying, starving and dying. Because you first and foremost, you're struggling for mates, you're struggling for food, you're struggling for shelter, you're struggling for water, and even respiratory gases. So you'll die without even reproducing. So as a poor competitor, you should just have to pray for yourself. Okay, then dispersal, this one we already talked about it under wind. Yeah, and we have so many agents of dispersal, so that's not hard. Pollination, you know what happens. Angiosperms are flowering plants. So if at all you don't know flowering plants, that means you don't understand the point. But I've told you, and hope you've noted down, that angiosperms are flowering plants. Mimicry. So mimicry is to mimic. Mimicry. I don't know if you people have heard of this. To mimic. To mimic, it's like to imitate. So it's like to imitate. But the most important word is to look like. Yeah. So to mimic, so when for you see mimicry, it's to look like. So this is what happens in mimicry. I don't know if you are at school and they are caning senior fives, and maybe you want to survive, you can decide to put on the uniform of senior ones. So that means you're trying to look like senior ones to survive canes. So that is mimicry. I know if you're getting me. So mimicry, you look like something to either escape something or to get something. You understand? They're caning senior fives at school and maybe you have a different uniform with those of senior one. You get? Yes. There are those people, they usually cane and they stand near the sick bay. Why? They want to be interpreted as sick students. So they are looking like they are sick. They are trying to mimic the sick. When you put on a uniform of senior one as a senior five, you're trying to mimic a senior one. You're trying to look like a senior one. So that's how you end up escaping strokes. So that is it. So it's different from camouflage. Most people confuse the two. So mimicry, the tendency of a group of organism or an organism to resemble other dangerous or unpalatable. By unpalatable, they mean something you can't eat. You all know the soft palate and hard palate. Those are the two things that take part in ingestion as we are trying to eat our food. So palatable comes from palatability. It comes from the soft and hard palates that play a very key role in eating. Yeah. So this is usually to scare away predators. So the examples, we have a fly, but it resembles a wasp. Remember, a wasp is not is something that is not preyed on so much because it can affect you seriously. Yeah. So in most of the cases, the unpalatable species, those species they can't eat. So by unpalatable, we mean non-edible. So that's another biological word that is accepted. So they usually have warning colors, colors that are distinctive, or they have markings. How do we know that they are unpalatable? Usually predators try them, and then predators either what they have preyed on goes bad, or they feel something not okay with them. So what the predators do, they usually recognize these signs and avoid attacking them again. So they always avoid similar markings. So the one mimicking is what they call the mimic. So the mimic is also protected from the attack. I don't know if people are getting. If at all, I don't know if people know what they call the eel. The eel is an electric fish. Of course, we know how it looks like. It has markings and so on. So there may be some other fish that is not electric, but it is overpreyed on. So it may decide to find ways of looking like the electric fish, the eel, because it knows the eel is not being attacked. So when it tries to look for ways of looking like the eel, what it's doing, it's mimicking. So it's a mimic. It's trying to look like the electric eel so that it escapes predators. Because predators now know how the eel looks like, and they try to capture their markings and recognize their signs and what they do, their colors, or what we call the warning correlations. So that's how the mimic also survives being attacked by the predator that has been disturbing them for some good time. Yeah. So this last one, the allelopathy or the antibiosis, that's of course concerning antibiotics. That is not very hard. You know what antibiotics are. But when they say antibiosis, of course it is something against life. You get? Nothing much. You can see what they are doing. They are inhibiting germination. So something that inhibits germination is against life. So allelopathy, antibiosis, they fall under the same thing. Parasitism, I told you about them. Yeah. And they are telling you that parasites are only many inside the host that has abundant food. So if you're very fat, chances are high that parasites that depend on fat will be so many inside your body. And if you're thin, that means there will be very few. Human species, You know what they call poaching and encroachment. They're even mentioning hunting here. So man can influence distribution of organisms. If at all man is living near a forest and man usually does hunting and so on, that means organisms will have to migrate and leave that place. If man tries to do agriculture or farming there, man will have encroached on the habitat of those organisms. That means those organisms will have to leave and find their way out. I don't know if people are getting the point. Yes, man, they have to leave it and find their way out. Yeah. Pests and diseases, you know what they do? They decrease number of organisms. They have never been good. Even the toxic pests, they do the same. Mutualism, you know, it's a form of symbiosis, helping each other, where both parties in the relationship benefit. But this is all under heterotrophic nutrition, which is not part of your syllabus. So please find time and read much about mutualism. So I'm giving it to you as research, but I've given you 2 important points. I'll even give you an example of the lichen, that is fungi and algae. You can read more about the mutualism, form of symbiosis. Both parties of the relationship benefit, such as the lichen. Is that hard? Someone who has been listening has noted the 2. So I'm going to come here. It has been a very tough journey, but we have managed to complete the factors affecting the distribution. But you have a lot of content read there. So let's introduce, I've given you the research. The first research is about the what? The mutualism. Then the next is assignment, and it's about ecosystems because I've talked about them. So I'm going to introduce them chap. In the next 5 minutes, we are going to be leaving this place. Yeah. So ecosystem, we already defined it. Yeah. We define it, and I told you about these definitions. You get them from textbooks. So the best definition of the ecosystem is found in FA. The best definition of the ecosystem is in FA. And I think it is that very one they put. Unit of the environment consisting of living and non-living components whose interaction results in a stable and self-sustaining system. Yeah, that's the definition. So what I want you to go and research about, you go and research about all aquatic ecosystems, because you know aquatic means water. And after researching about aquatic ecosystems, you go and now research about all, you know, the opposite of aquatic. Opposite of aquatic. They didn't talk about the other ones. They only talked about aquatic. It is okay. So that means you see you're only doing research on aquatic. Then the next we shall have reached energy flow through an ecosystem. Yeah. And you all know that is our next stop. That is our next what? Next stop. So I'd promised people screenshots. So that means introducing the aquatic system, the ecosystem. I'm also done. And the assignment I've also given you, that is aquatic ecosystem. Then the next stop is energy flow, and I've also told you. So we have reached the end. Yeah. So we are taking screenshots very fast. Just 5 seconds per page. So our next stop is non-ecosystem. My assignment is about aquatic ecosystems. Then my research. About mutualism. Yeah. So those who have stayed on even after past midnight, thank you for that endurance. Yeah. You can take that and put it in the group so that people can have a look at the assignment, at the research, energy flow, and the next stop. People who have left without taking the screenshots, but anyway, I'm going to find ways of sharing the work. But one thing I beg, someone take the screenshots and you share it with your friends. These very ones, they're the ones you should give them. Yes, please do that for me. Yes. Someone take them clear ones and send them in the group. I don't know if I still have someone active. You take that. That is one. Take the second. After you send them, when you see someone asking for them, you send. I may not send you my organized summary book. You take that also. You take that one also. Take that one also. Take that one. Okay, I'm also going to share the screenshots, because I'm also taking them. I'm just giving a chance to those who are still on to also take them. Actually, don't copy my work on aquatic ecosystems. You're the ones who are supposed to make research. Then the next stop shall be energy flow. Yeah. Otherwise, those who have stayed on, thank you for being great doctors in the making. May God bless you. Let me first capture your names. But the problem, some of you may be sleeping. But thanks for being there. Future doctors. You first say amen if you are on. I see, because I've only seen Chimbugwe Ronald who is on. Wait, what of others? Those are two. Those are two doctors. Those are three doctors. Those are four doctors. You see, the three doctors are sleeping. But at least they are on. Okay, people. We meet again. I think the fifth doctor has come. Who is that? Oh. Okay, people, bye. Thanks for staying. Bye-bye. Love you.